Call the meeting to order. The tax classification hearing will not be tonight. It will be the next meeting in 2 weeks. Also I'll make a couple announcements quick since we have a couple minutes. The decision on the solar fields that came down from the state will be on the website on the planning board page starting tomorrow. So we did get something from the Commonwealth of Mass, the Attorney General. So we'll have that. We'll have that on an agenda, on a future agenda, but it'll give people a chance to look at it before we have it on the agenda. I also just quickly want to acknowledge the fire response for the brush fire up on top of South Mountain Road. The quick response by the fire and police stopped it from, reaching 2 houses, maybe 3, and no property other than a shed was damaged. So I want to acknowledge and give kudos to the fire department, the police, the ambulance for going up there, and the DPW workers, whether you know it or not. A lot of times they show up and do things. They put signs up. They show up and help. I know they did a lot of pro bono work this summer on the 350th celebration. So I want to acknowledge everybody involved. Hope I didn't forget anybody. Okay. Well, we have a couple minutes. Let's do a review and approval of warrants. So,
from last time?
10/30/24 payroll warrant of $85,938.38.
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Okay, the 10/30/24 vendor warrant of $1,540,986.26. It's for pro service accessors, PVS assessment, PVRS assessment,
Yeah, I think
and
that's
FY25 capital project emergency services and EMS transport expense.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, the current ones here this week's. The 11/13/24 payroll warrant of $90,200.32.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. The 11/13/2024 vendor warrant of $147,110.42. That's highway, health insurance, Chapter 90 fair share.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We have approval of minutes 10/22/24.
So moved.
I just noticed something on the minutes. On the review and approval of warrants, there's no vote tally on the payroll warrant. Is that necessary?
Was it approved?
There was no vote tally.
Oh, I don't have them in front of me.
No,
Sandra,
we
do
don't,
you see
it's
it?
just usually as long as it's approved.
Well, we can make the amendment.
I didn't know
Just-
if the tally was important. It's been everywhere else but that line. We approved it, but it just
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
show up here.
On the vendor warrant?
It doesn't show what the vote was is all.
Yeah.
You can amend that. I'm sure Sandra has it.
I'm sorry, where are we?
On the
10/22
second
minutes.
on approval and review of the warrants,
The vendor warrant.
the payroll warrant, there's no vote tally.
Right, when there's no split, like on the vendor warrant.
Ah, that makes sense.
Oh, it's unanimous.
Oh, okay, it
Oh.
wasn't the vendor warrant, it was the payroll, okay.
Payroll
I've been
warrant.
educated, thank you.
All right. So,
So moved. I think we did so moved in second,
Yeah.
right?
Second.
Yeah.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Well, we're early, but let's get going with let's bring up the food pantry.
Yay.
Yay, come on up. Introduce yourself.
Yeah. Well,
All
it's a
three of
team,
you?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, in case somebody is watching, doesn't know who you are, but
And we should have worn our name tags.
So, good evening. I'm Steve Roberto, Gulf Road in Northfield, and I'm currently chair of the Northfield Regional Food Pantry. Joined with our pantry manager, Linda Chapin. She can tell you where she lives.
I live on 4 Mile Brook Road, best part of town.
And Marge,
Fields.
and the assistant pantry manager.
I'm Marge Payton. I live on Ashwood.
Okay.
Thank you for having us. It's nice to be able to share with you, and thank you, Andrea, for the invitation, and you folks, to give you an idea of what we've been doing for the past 10 years. We reopened the pantry in 2014. Starting in 2013, built it out and reopened 2014. So we've been through a lot, right? With pre and post COVID, and growth in the pantry has been pretty remarkable. I would say approximately, I'm just reading off a bit, about 200 people a month, individuals served currently. And that's up from 5 to 12 people when we open.
Wow.
An opening.
I can actually give you
And Linda's
a
here.
real quickie while we're going through this. So in October 2024, we are open 2 days a month, the second and fourth. So my report that goes to the Western Mass Food Pantry down there, I count just 1 month. I put them all together and count how many we have. So we served a total of, in October, of 69 households, which equaled 163 individuals. Of those households, 12 of them were new households. We break it down. We serve the whole, anybody that is hungry. For October, we served 40 people from Northfield, 40 families, 8 families from Bernardston, 7 from Warwick, 8 from Winchester, 5 from Greenfield, and 1 from Turner's Falls. The ages were 0 to 17 years of age was 34, 18 to 64 was 77, and people over 65 were 52. And then for the food bank, I also do service visits, which they want you to count all the people that we serve, not just families, but everybody. So we served, in those 2 weeks, we served a total of 248 families.
Wow.
So that was October. And so when I first started, it was nowhere near that many people. So it's been great.
I'd like to point out that our funding for the pantry operation is 100% donation. We get our sources of income from individuals, corporations, local farmers, and the Food Bank of Western Mass. We're a member agency of the food bank and as an emergency food shelter. So that's a pretty important distinction for the regional area. But as you can see, the bulk of the population that visits us still is Northfield, with Bernardston trailing behind. We have a very low bar to allow people to utilize the service, arrive, fill out a form, and tell us what we can provide you that we have available, that we can give you.
I can pass out, where are
You can
we?
hand that out.
Yeah.
There's a food order sheet, if you will, which is a 2-page sheet of the items
Take one.
that you might find
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that.
useful,
Yeah.
because it tells all the items from personal care items to food, obviously frozen, produce, etc.,
And there's a backside.
what we have available at that opening.
Yep.
Right.
And it varies every single opening.
Thank you.
I also have, and I need these back, you can keep those if you want, but no, these, I'm gonna, this is the, what I get, when I go down to the food bank and pick up food 2 or 3 times a month, This is what they give me. And on here, you can see, the Western Mass Food Bank is like the most awesome place in the whole wide world. You can see what we ordered. You can see the total on the backside. You can see the total weight. Like this one, it was a biggie, so it was 893 pounds. Of the 893 pounds, we paid $10.08.
Wow.
So I do need this back, but you can look at them, pass them around.
So that's the benefit of belonging to being a member agency of the food bank, and all the members that are share that benefit. We get MFAP, which is state food. We are not USDA taking advantage of that because of some of the hurdles involved with that program in terms of separating and counting. And donations are a very large part of the mix.
Wow.
I want to recognize that we're a subgroup of the First Parish of Northfield Unitarian Church, a 501c3. It may not be known, but I'm just sharing that. They've been amazing at supporting us, and we, between the food bank and their support, that is association, is invaluable. Has been. So again, I mentioned that we are a regional emergency food shelter pantry, and we hope to not have to use it, but in the event of a natural disaster or other event, we would take that role as a part of an emergency response to feed many more people probably than we currently do if there was a need. That's a whole different organizational challenge. How do we deliver the food? You've probably seen them on Saturday, but patrons line up in their vehicles. We don't really want people to go in, it's too small a space. We're in the Dickinson Memorial Library on the ground floor, and it's 2 rooms that we occupy and fill orders. And we don't have room to have people shopping, but they can shop via the sheet. They line up in their vehicles, and then they do the selection from the order sheet that we are passing around to you for food and personal care items. So then how do we obtain the food? The pantry manager, Linda, and myself go to the food bank and retail organizations to get food to bring into the pantry. So the 863 pounds that Linda referenced for one order was one trip and one order. That does not include what is delivered to us by local farms or what I go and pick up from an organic farm in West Whately. So it's a very good program. They're getting really good quality offering. We get hundreds of pounds of food from local farmers every year. And we know many of the names from Brico to Piccadilly Farm to others, that they bring everything from their produce, others eggs, and it's just phenomenal. We can have 50 dozen eggs in an opening for an opening day that has all been donated to us, either through the food bank or from local farmers, if you will, egg producers. Egg farm. So it's remarkable. I'd like to thank Andrea and Leslie for adding us to the new town newsletter, us new, and our coin drop we had on November 2nd, Saturday, at the intersection. And in 3 hours, we raised $2,220.50.
Nice.
Had we stayed out 4 to 6 hours, who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
We would have been dead.
But that's
I sat in a chair.
Yes.
She did all the work.
obviously very helpful to helping support the budget and the pantry operation. We do invite volunteers, since we're speaking also to the community. We invite volunteers to help in the pantry and in the bottles and cans operation, which is in its own class. It's in Northfield and Bernardston, and for Northfield, it's the anchor. It's been a amazing event. the amount of bottles and cans that go to be used, turn to money to be used for the pantry, is in the thousands. So, about 5,000 out of
So
Northfield.
that's, just a clarification, so that's at the transfer station in Northfield and,
Thank you.
and at Bernardston, right?
There's
Because I
a new-
know Bernardston
that's
was
right,
new
there's-
this year.
That's new and emerging and very
Yeah.
slow.
Okay.
That's, education and exposure and that sort of thing. But Northfield, yes, they're both in the transfer station, and, doing quite well.
Yeah,
And Bernardston has a lot of opportunity to grow there to match equal. So we'd like to encourage and invite you to come see the pantry, the community as well, just, so we can share the space and what we're doing, have been doing, and it's pretty remarkable for 2 little rooms, what goes on there and what comes out of there.
yeah, it's bigger than I thought,
Uh,
when you were showing
yeah.
me that day, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting us share what we do. And I don't know if you have any questions you would like to ask, please do. Glad to help.
I do actually, for the benefit of people listening, while you have the camera, what are ways to donate, and where can people drop off food, and do you accept also monetary donations?
Yes, thank you for pointing it out. We should have had the cards with us. We can make those available. We have a donation bin at the library, a blue roll-off bin for donations of food. For the donations, it's P.O. Box 103.
103, yep.
Yes, in Northfield Regional Food Pantry. And they can go to the Facebook site if they use Facebook, and find all the details there as well. And we're
We have a
glad-
QR code too, that will take you right
Yes.
to, the right place, yep.
No, it's good.
People are very generous, we have very generous, and speaking of the bottles and cans, people wanna know, our last meeting we had, it was decided that, or our treasurer told us that the money that we made on bottles and cans in the last fiscal year was enough to buy the food that we buy. Now Marge and I go pantry shopping once a month and buy the things, and that's where the donations for the bottles and cans, or just people donating money, helps. We buy things that I can't get at the food bank, like some condiments, or what do we buy?
And we also write.
A lot of different things. I mean, flour, sugar, that kind of
Sure,
thing,
that's
to
Yeah.
add
good,
to what we've gotten from the bank.
And with our partnership with Western Mass Food Bank, we have written 5 grants and been awarded for various amounts. And the latest was an emergency capacity building grant for $1,200 to be able to afford to repair a freezer, a double freezer that was acting sketchy on us. So we have cost. We do pay the electricity and lighting, if you will, for the pantry to the library, and we have other, expenses, as you'd expect, for keeping the place in proper order.
Is there
Yeah,
anything
we
that
have-
you, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Pardon me?
I didn't mean to interrupt. Is there anything that you cannot accept or that you don't want people to drop off, as far as food goes?
Well, we certainly would like to stay clear of dented and expired foods, because then we're in the business of recycling those.
Right.
And so in date and in good service condition, and unopened
Unopened
is
is a
generally,
biggie.
that's an important one, but basically, in that condition, so we follow food safety regulations. We don't prepare food in the pantry, but we are very aware of the condition of food, and we have to monitor the fridge and freezer temperatures. We have to make sure if incoming food is suitable for distribution out. And and Linda and Marge are always looking at these dates to make sure we're not severely at or over any date on food that goes out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So
Is there anything that folks, so this is document that you give, that people get, and they can get it on the website, or they get it on site?
Currently, we give it handed out. It's a good idea to maybe consider putting it on the website. We find most people though are, I won't say snail mail, but they're just sort of, they pull up in the car, that's their expectation. We hand them a clipboard with a sheet with a pencil, and they fill out the order. And similar to the QR code, which is a more high-tech, right, version for a lot of folks, more than 50% of the folks are elderly and may not have the technology awareness or knowledge to take advantage of that. So we hand them a sheet.
I think that would be really, usually I don't have the list done until Friday, and to put it online and then to take it offline.
Yeah.
I just can't see that working.
A little bit more labor intensive.
Yeah,
I hear you.
our volunteers are amazing, but it's a really good volunteer.
Yeah, yeah. No,
It's
it
a
wasn't meant
really-
as a criticism. I just want to make sure people know how it goes, how it happens.
Right.
And people don't need to have pre-signed up. They can just show up, right?
That's correct.
And you don't need to prove where you live, you don't have to prove how much money you make. Nobody wants to know. The food bank doesn't want to know, the church doesn't want to know, we don't want to know. And legally, through the state of Massachusetts, we can't turn people away.
And we don't really have
And we never
any
have.
interest in it, but the point is the bar is very low. We're interested in serving people in need, and that is the statement. And we
Yeah.
ask for their name and the color of the car, period. And the breakout of the demographics for the age of individuals in the family, that's for reporting back to the food bank, that's it. And then
Yeah, no
make
names
your
are
order.
ever given out. The food bank only needs numbers
So
in order
this
to
is
do
so the
their.
volunteer can find them once they do the shopping?
Yeah, with
Yeah,
a car.
Color.
Right.
Right, and then
So
we
they
go
come
out,
Yeah,
we go out and say, are you so-and-so?
Yeah.
And
here's your food.
here's your
Right.
food, and,
Yeah,
and they get well, you can see, I limit
yep,
how much food they get. I've never wanted, a lot of food banks or food pantries, they give them a bag. Or your brown bag thingy, here's a bag of things that you might not want. So that's
Oh,
why
okay.
I do it that way.
yeah, so they're shopping.
They're
And then
shopping.
You're updating this as it sounds like depending on what you have, give
Correct.
for that given week.
And
right?
Every day, every
each
week.
opening.
Every week.
Yeah.
Okay,
And even throughout, while we're open,
Yeah.
the volunteers say to me, we're out of such and such, so I either cross it off, or that's on a Google Docs thing, so it's really easy to update. And you can see what we offer. We don't just offer food, we also offer pet food when we
oh
have
yeah, I
it.
was gonna ask you about that.
We offer personal care items.
Yep,
We offer incontinence things. And we don't buy those are donated. People donate those all the time. It's amazing.
And
But
they're expensive.
yeah,
Very
they are. I was
expensive.
just gonna say, cause my sister works with elderly folks, so
Yeah.
so sometimes when people move from their home into a hospital
Right.
or rehab, then there's extra material, and so people can drop those off as
They
well.
can.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
We have a number of folks in the community that have lost a partner or a loved one, and very often they are donating out. They don't have the need, and they call us and donate it to us.
Great. And how's the pet food demand? I mean, are you,
The pet food demand is fairly high. Everything, we get food from the Franklin County Sheriff's Dog
Okay.
Shelter when they have available overage. And what we take probably is the equivalent of thousands of dollars of food from them donated to us, and it's gone. We put it on the list. It's cat food, dog food, dry or wet or whatever the matrix is, and they check it off. And we can have a cart with many hundreds of pounds on it, and then it's broken up and it's gone, distributed.
yeah, both those things, the pet food and the incontinence and menstrual.
Yep.
things. We have given out more of those
Okay.
in the last number of months.
Yeah.
Is there-
Those are very expensive. I mean, we go
Yeah.
shopping and we see how much, we don't have to worry about it anymore, but we know how much it definitely costs.
Yeah.
And for all those things. So definitely if people are watching and they, have some lying around of the incontinence things, we definitely take them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
So thanks for having us, and we really have to share with you the amount, how grateful we are, and how generous people are in the community.
Oh, very generous.
With writing checks or donating food and all the questions, all the items that you mentioned, Sarah, in their own way, they can come up, and one fellow locally brings us 18 to 20 dozen organic eggs, carton,
Wow.
12-pack. So it comes from a number of sources, and it seems to be growing. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
One thing
I wish we'd go out of business, but it's a good problem to have.
Well, yeah, we have people who come and then they don't come anymore. So we're filling that, that space in their lives when they need help. And then maybe they got a job and they don't need help anymore. We also have a person who volunteers at the Amherst Survival Center. And when that closes down on Friday afternoon, she brings bread from the Amherst Survival Center.
Oh, good.
And that material is in date, typically all in date, and it's bread and pastries and other items.
Cider
It's from
donuts.
Whole Foods, Stop and Shop, and the local
Atkins.
Hadley, Amherst area. So we're actually pulling from a lot of different towns, right, that are contributing, that do not live in Northfield, but we're getting, everyone regionally is getting the benefit back.
Yep, it's great.
We have a lot of people that support us.
Yep.
We're very lucky.
Yeah.
The blue bin
Very
almost always has
Stuff in it.
stuff in it.
Full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's wonderful.
Anything else you want to add?
No?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Good work.
And just to mention it, if you do have a time when you are short, if you let us know, we'll announce it here at the meeting.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be excellent. And
Okay.
maybe in small, I would say in small groups, like this group, or 5 or 6 folks or 7 folks at a time. The space is limited in terms of having 30 or more. But we'd love to show it to you.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, thank you for
Thank you.
sending
Okay,
this back.
thank you.
We'll do it. We'll do a
Steve's good at
field
following
trip.
directions. You hand him back the papers.
You gave me back the paper.
I can follow directions.
I need them. Thank you.
We're not gonna mess
Thank
with
you.
those.
Get up now.
Thanks, you guys. That was helpful.
All right, we'll move on to the business park presentation.
Look at you, right on time.
Wow.
Come on up, introduce yourself, and
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Hi, Sean.
hey,
Do you want to bring Leslie up too, just since?
Yeah.
yeah, introduce yourself so that people know who you are.
Sure. So my name is Sean O'Donnell. I'm the Community Development and Planning Coordinator for West Mass Area Development Corp. We're a nonprofit real estate development company that was created by the state legislature back in the early 60s to advance economic development, job growth, and the tax base throughout Western Mass. And I just want to say that presentation before, personally, I could say working at a food shelter and pantry is one of the most fulfilling things you can do. And my wife worked at the Survival Center for a while when we were first dating. But also, we're really proud as West Mass to have helped facilitate the Food Bank of Western Mass at our Chicopee River Business Park. So they just built their distribution center a couple years back on within one of our business parks.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
so that-
okay, because that was a huge move from them,
And
for
a
them.
big investment too.
Yeah.
And so it was a combination of a lot of project partners, but we built all that infrastructure back when we think started that project in the 80s.
Oh.
But yeah, that was one of our kind of cornerstone developments, and we're really proud to be a part of that project.
Can I clarify, the place that they go visit, you guys built?
It was our land originally, but the distribution center, yeah, for the Food Bank of Western Mass, was,
Cool.
we sold the property to the food bank. Yep. And so that's just a little bit of backstory of West Mass. We helped facilitate and built a lot of the business and industrial parks in the 4 western counties of Massachusetts. Increasingly, we do more and more brownfields projects as a developer, including the Ludlow Mills and brownfield mill redevelopment projects in Ludlow, Springfield, East Hampton. We tend to be pretty focused in the greater Springfield area, but I'm really trying to expand our reach into Franklin and Berkshire County. My background is in regional planning, particularly rural economic development. I grew up in a small town of 3,000 people in Canada, so this is kind of my personal interest is seeing small communities having to plan for the future, adapt, but also trying to maintain what's great about a rural community. And I think Northfield is such a great community that I've been privileged to be working with you guys since February. So that's the spiel out of the way. But West Mass was hired back in February to help advance the work that the Northfield Business Park Development Committee was doing. And I know in part that was a reflection of recognizing that so much of the tax base is residential in town. And if you're looking to advance and expand public services or reduce the strain on your residential tax base, encouraging new business growth and balancing that out with more and more commercial activity has a whole array of benefits, not only job creation so that kids that are graduating from high school may have job opportunity to stay here, and you don't have that same 18 to 40 year age gap where maybe they'll go off to school and then come back and start a family, but really try and think about how you can create an environment for young people to build their families and have employment here, but then also the tax benefits. So and thinking about how you can grow the economy, balance an aging population with a new workforce, and really have a sustaining community for years to come. And so I'll jump to the first slide, off the title slide. I know this is familiar to, I can't see it there.
There he goes. There he goes.
Yeah, just the next slide. So I know this is familiar to folks that have been to our community engagement events. We did a first listening session back in May. We started with a kickoff meeting in February, then a community listening session in May, and then just last month we presented our preliminary findings and solicited more feedback from the community here, and I know that was a decent turnout. I think we had about 25 people that came to that event and some new faces. And so we were really happy to help bring in our outside advice and expertise, but also really trying to hear from the community and figure out a couple sites and programming that makes sense for a potential business park. One thing that came up quite a lot in part of this project was the terminology of a business park. And I think what came out, especially the last meeting, was the advantage of using terms like village commons, because we're really not talking about a Walmart supercenter, a Stop and Shop. It's finding really complementary uses and businesses with the benefit of commercial tax growth, but figuring out within a single campus approach how you can maximize the complement in different businesses that may work together on a single site. And so thinking a lot about maybe a mix of community uses along with small commercial, retail, craft shops, maybe some sort of anchor light industrial use, but really thinking about complement of businesses within a single site. And so we wanted to, first of all, it was never the intention, but really wanted to get ahead of what conceptions may come to people's mind when they think of what a business park is. And I think really important to right size it for the town of Northfield. And so our role was to build on the work of the Business Park Development Committee, look at what the local market and potential sites in town might be, building on the work of the committee, and then really work with the local officials and key stakeholders in town to figure out what the next steps and recommendations and potential sites may be in town. Could you jump ahead to project goals, please? And so the roadmap that we're trying to lay out is a business park development that, if pursued, would ultimately boost the local economy, generate employment, enhance Northfield's tax base, and support community aims and development goals.
I was just going to shut it off. Sorry.
No worries.
Oh, skip.
That's funny. And I just lost my track of thought, but
Is that a ringtone just for Skip, or?
Well, no, that was, I'll mention it real quick. I didn't mention it at the beginning of the meeting, there's a burn ban,
Yes.
outdoor fires, burning ban here in Northfield because of the dry conditions. He just put it on the emergency communication on our website and sent it out.
okay.
There you go, real time.
Real
No
time.
burning.
Yeah,
Don't light anything on fire right now.
yeah.
And just one overarching point, our work was entirely grant funded through a mass development grant through the community planning grant program. One thing as we really started looking from the outside in Northfield was we saw clear market opportunities for a four-season recreation economy. And not only just because of the natural settings, but you also have you have existing locations through trails, the boat ramp, you have local partners that are engaged in the recreation economy, you have the Great River Challenge. So I think capitalizing on that in a way that doesn't just have folks maybe coming for a day, but maybe has, or just passing through and maybe just enjoying the trails, but really thinking about how you have a captured audience of people that are going here for trails. Ideally, there's a cafe or a restaurant that they might be able to also spend their time and spend their dollars as they come into the town. You also have a significant traffic count going through your main street. Oh.
No, that was me. Please complain about my microphone.
When we looked at Mass DOT's numbers, you have more than 8,000 vehicles that go down your main street daily on average, which is very high for a town the size of Northfield, heading to New Hampshire. And there are seasonal peaks, so that is averaged over the year. And we're going to drill into that a little bit more in our final draft about when those counts were taken. But that is a huge potential capturable market of cars going through the downtown that are otherwise just congesting the roadways and not necessarily stopping and spending their dollars in Northfield. So we definitely see an opportunity there. And we also see the benefit of having public water and sewer, particularly in the north end of town, that has underutilized properties that are serviced by that public water and sewer, which oftentimes if you need to build a septic and well system, that can be cost prohibitive when you're looking at a business park, and it's very rare, but there are examples of business parks with a septic and well system, including in Orange. So jumping ahead to the map that shows the commercial clusters from the master plan, there you can see we mapped out a buffer around the high traffic areas in town.
I want to tell him to go 2 slides.
Oh, yeah, jump ahead 2 more slides. There we go. Yep. So you see your main thoroughfare, Main Street, Route 10. We did a buffer around the traffic counts, recognizing that you're not going to pull people necessarily too far away from where they're driving, but there is some opportunity and flexibility around that main drag. We look, the green area are the parcels that are served by public water and sewer, and then the orange clusters in the middle are the 3 commercial clusters that were in the town's 2014 master plan. So we wanted to start our efforts using GIS mapping analysis to look at properties that are within these overlapped areas. Jumping to the next slide, we also took in account data that came out of the economic development survey that was analyzed earlier this year to see, in terms of economic development goals, renovation and redevelopment of existing buildings, so looking at underutilized properties with structures already as potential business park sites, and then looking down compacting business districts, looking at the town center, mixed-use redevelopment, potentially a mix of commercial and residential or in-space, business industrial parks away from the direct town center, and then new construction of commercial buildings as a lesser priority, but still a priority. To the next slide, community input. So this is just summarizing some of the key things that we got from the community listening session in May and then also in October. The vision for a business park, really a central business district, potential with restaurant, coffee shops, and creating a small college town vibe. Like I said, right size for Northfield. We're not thinking about anything grand scale commercial, something that makes sense here. But entertainment options, community space, gathering spaces. I think we see more and more communities that have fewer and fewer of those spaces, unfortunately, for community gatherings and of all types, especially flexible spaces that can be used for civic uses, but also commercial events. And we also saw missing businesses that came up. Quite a lot of people mentioned the lack of restaurants, potentially more grocery stores, and then benefit that could come with more recreational amenities like bike rentals, kayaking. Also, potentially shared needs among agricultural producers, whether it's for cold storage, common distribution, that there could be a potential market niche there, opportunity. Concerns that came up, traffic and parking, were identified as potential drawbacks of a business park, with concerns about maintaining the town's rural bucolic character, and also worries about Northfield residents gravitating toward other nearby towns like Greenfield and Vermont for services.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Also, I mean, it's a concern of mine, any business park that is gonna put added pressure on our water and, wastewater
Yes.
systems. So, we need to do, just so you're aware, we need upgrades on those.
Yes, and we have spoken with, and I know that's concern. I think Time Bond is looking. Is that still an ongoing study?
Yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely, that's a consideration.
Okay.
And it's always a bit of a catch-22 because you're worried about putting new uses on it, but you also need those user fees to justify future expansion and improvements.
Right.
So that's where you need to find the right balance and prioritize it in the right way. Absolutely. Jumping to the next slide, the site selection process slide. So we really took a combination of mapping analysis, like I said, mentioning traffic counts and where public infrastructure is, looking at past planning work, so building on the master plan and the 2021 local rapid recovery plan that was done for a lot of communities, and then the community input that we got through our project, but also the economic development survey. And combining all of these and through our stakeholder engagement, we really started to narrow in on 2 sites in town. If you could jump to that next slide, that are both concentrated in the north end of town. 0 Main Street, which is just a bit of a misnomer because I know the numbers go up as you head further north, but that's a 20-acre lot owned by Northfield Mount Herman School that is just adjacent to the Pawchog boat ramp. And then also 65 Winchester Road, which is across from Thomas Aquinas College. I've heard it called the Barnes property, and that's owned by the Moody Center. And so those were 2 sites that really percolated in our discussions and in our analysis.
Sean,
Yeah.
can you
Go
ask a question? Did Ravel and Holton come up in any discussion? Did you talk with the Moody Center about
Yes.
Ravel and Holton?
Yes.
Right next to quote unquote 0 Main Street.
Yep.
Okay.
No, and my understanding is that they're collecting historic tax credits for those buildings.
Right.
And I'd let them to speak for it, but that they do have development plans in mind for those buildings.
Okay.
Do they give you a timeline? That's the question that I get the most often, because I think it's been promised for a while. Of course, they would make beautiful,
They are beautiful.
like bed and breakfasts, but it takes, the internal renovation is
Yeah.
relatively substantial.
And it's really challenging anytime you're doing historic tax credits because they're released only 3 times a year, and it's only a certain capped amount. So oftentimes, depending on the scale of your project, it can be 4, 5, 10 years until you accumulate enough historic tax credits that it becomes feasible in your pro forma to actually start construction.
So you accumulate it as if it's like sitting in the bank?
It's pledged by the Secretary of State, but there are also a lot of projects that have pledged historic tax credits that are never going to get off the ground. But it's a process you have to apply every few months and slowly accumulate with your project. And then once you hit your thresholds that you can start construction, then you can go out and sell those credits. But it's a very slow, long process.
Thank you for the extra explanation.
Yep. So we wanted to, if you jump to the slide that's follow historical development patterns, we really, as we're conceptualizing what the site might look like, wanted to look at what the architectural case study is of Northfield. So it's the classic colonial pattern, big house, little house, back house, barn, that you see in a lot of rural communities. And so we wanted to propose any new construction would be in line with what already makes sense within the character of Northfield. And what's actually beautiful about this type of development pattern is by nature it creates a lot of complementary spaces and uses with lots of exterior entrances, but it can create one campus that has a lot of subdividable or combinable space depending on the size of the tenant or business that might go in there. Jumping to the next slide, we looked at a couple local regional case studies, not only for that development pattern, but also a mix of complementary uses. So we looked at the farm table and Kringle Candle Factory in Bernardston, which really, I know personally is a destination for my wife and I, but also is a really good example of businesses that are complementary with one another. You have the anchor tenant for the commercial production for the candles, but also the restaurant. And I think that is a local case study that hopefully residents in Northfield would relate to and could see in their town, probably may even hear that once in a while, that why don't we have something like that in town. And when you, again, looking back to the traffic counts, Bernardston is more out of the way than Northfield really is when you think about where cars are heading. So there is, I think, a capturable market and opportunity there.
May I ask a question on that? So, Farm Table was not open for quite a while.
During COVID, yeah.
And so, but even after that, like, it just reopened, I think, very recently.
Yep.
And what are you seeing pattern-wise? Because we're looking patterns at restaurant. Everybody wants a restaurant here. Everybody wants a coffee. But the thing that I'm hearing from folks is it's the startup is so expensive.
Yep. And it's risky.
And risky.
Yep.
And even the buildings that are currently, we've had some buildings that have gotten credits for renovating inside the restaurant and stuff like that, but it's really lengthy and expensive. So that it brought up the question. I'm sorry, my back hurts so bad. I'm trying to stay on task here. It brought up the question. And so I'd like to, as we go further, make sure that you address that, because we want to be careful to be realistic and not pie in the sky,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So that was my goal.
No, it's a great point. They are risky for the developer that's doing the restaurant, and I think where you get the benefits of a business park is you have surrounding businesses and potentially anchor tenants that are more stable, that if you have space that's dedicated to a restaurant or cafe, that's not going to be the make or break for the developer or the property owner or the town, depending on how it's structured, or public-private partnership. But you can have guaranteed revenue from these other uses, and the restaurant can be flexible. So if one restaurant unfortunately doesn't succeed, it can be a space that maybe another restaurant could come into.
Reused.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you get the diversified portfolio. Basically.
I'm sorry, a minute. In visiting business parks in the area, overwhelmingly, it was a restaurant that was the anchor.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the thing that was bringing it. So that was the thing that was bringing the business. That was the driver of it. So when you say another anchor, what are you, independent of the restaurant, what kind of things are you talking about?
It could be light industrial or some sort of steady business, maybe light manufacturing, that has employees, that maybe has a long-term lease that a restaurant wouldn't enter into a 10, 20-year lease. It can be really dependent. So a good example is the Orange Innovation Center, which I used to work at. And so that has Heidi Liners as its anchor tenant. That is the largest paying tenant, and that's a very stable business. And that kind of creates the bottom floor for a bunch of small businesses, the cafe, Honest Weight. You need the diverse mix of businesses, but you have that steady anchor that's really helping keep your balance sheet in the black each month.
And for the folks who are listening, can you define what is light industrial? What does that mean?
So it just production of goods. So it's anything that, like, it's not heavy manufacturing. It's not, big hammers, or so it could be 3D printing. It could be craftsmanship. It could be a small carpenter working out of a shop, or an array of carpenters and craftsmen. It's a brewery is considered light manufacturing as well.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, also, I know, being a pet owner, even something with veterinary services, everybody's like, well, where can I get a vet? There's a lot of vets, not very many vets, and I mean, that's a niche we
And
could, if we
groomers.
had a park like that or something, if we had a building that offered veterinary services,
Yeah.
I mean, that could be something that would really, just to throw on the plan.
What's interesting you say that is, and it's one of our other case studies we looked at is South Hadley. South Hadley said they've had more veterinary shops pop up than any other type of business recently, or proposals for it. And it's that seems to be common in some towns right now, and hopefully Northfield gets more veterinary.
They have a lot more population though, South Hadley, because it's a college town.
It has Mount Holyoke College, but they're not allowed to have pets. So, no, you're right.
But
It
the
has more population
population,
density. It
yeah.
does to justify it. But certainly, I think if there's a market gap, then you may be able to attract.
Something,
pet
I
owners
mean, you
from
have,
around the
like you
area.
said, you're looking at clusters of buildings.
Yeah.
Why couldn't one of those be a veterinary hospital?
Right.
or-
Absolutely.
Or an office? I mean, because I know a lot of people have asked me, I mean, who do you go to for a vet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know the vets are swamped.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
even if it's a learning facility
Mhm.
for, which could be a niche.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe it's a partnership with Greenfield Community College or Mount Wachusett Community College to see if there's some opportunity to have technicians come in. And that was a big part. When I was working in Orange and in Athol with Launch Space and Makerspace and everything, it was really trying to bring those community college resources to the more rural areas of Franklin County.
Just one quick question. Did you look at the Mill District in North Amherst, speaking of the Survival Center? Because that is a slightly different configuration and smaller, I think, than the South Hadley example.
It
And
is.
they've kind of changed,
They've had to little
adapt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
actually, Sarah LaCour, who worked on me with this project, she did the original sketch for the mill, and she still consults a little bit on it.
Oh, okay.
But she, she's very familiar with that project, and I know some of the commercial, like Jake's was there, and they were really trying. And Atkins had a location there, and I think it's increasingly becoming more residential. But still trying to find that right balance of commercial and residential. So,
Like coffee shop, art studio.
Exactly,
Yeah, there's some
yeah.
other things in there. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as I said, one of the other, so we looked at the Bernardston example, also South Hadley Village Commons, recognizing that there is more population density there, but thinking about the analog of a Village Commons type business park across from an institution like Thomas Aquinas College at a slightly different scale than Mount Holyoke,
Right.
but thinking about potentially commercial on the first floor, residential up above, which is the case in South Hadley, and really the interaction between the business uses and the student population there. And jumping ahead, just to show to the 65 Winchester Road, the Barnes example, really an interesting architectural look. When you look at the campus, it's located directly across from Thomas Aquinas College. It is on a very quiet residential street, and we certainly appreciate that as we're thinking through what development might look like there. It is already zoned as a planned development district, so that's one of the few parcels that haven't been developed but is within the town zoning for commercial use. Sorry.
Needs to go to the next slide.
Oh, just
There you go.
Yeah, so just some images from that site. I do know in talking with Christian Arnold at Clockwork that they would be interested in continuing conversations for commercial use at this site, and we laid out just a preliminary concept, if you go to that next slide, of probably a mixture of slightly new construction but still keeping that same architectural style with preserving some of the buildings. And this would take a much more in-depth architectural analysis to look at what's in good shape, what's savable, but we also lay out in our recommendations kind of a path there, as well as some grant funding that's out there now to begin some of that pre-development work in partnership with the property owner.
So it's in a quiet neighborhood on a residential street. What do the neighbors think?
I'm sure there's mixed opinions.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, and we had folks come out at the last meeting to talk about that. I know any discussion would really need to include traffic mitigation measures, and I think that unfortunately actually what happens when you have a rural road that doesn't have demarcation sidewalks, it becomes more of a free-for-all in some ways, but if you formalize and do sidewalks, street crossings, a traffic impact study, you can put together lighting and mitigation measures that if this was pursued as a business park, could actually be maintain that same walkability and actually improve it as well. But I think it's, as I said, it's came to the top of our list knowing that there's an interested developer and owner of the site, and also it is zoned within the planned development district. So that was really important in our consideration, and is served by public water and sewer.
So what number, do you have an idea of what a calculation of the number of people that, the number of cars that need to drive to a place to make it business profitable? You see what I'm saying? Do you, like, what's the, I'm looking for the calculus of the balance that is between being residential and having businesses that can actually survive and support themselves. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Well, it depends on the nature of the business. So some businesses are going to rely on that passive traffic and hopefully catch people that are driving through. Others might be a yoga studio that advertises and people are only going to go there if they're going to the business. So it would be hard to put a number on what types of traffic counts you would need, but it's definitely traffic impacts and mitigation measures would be a significant part of any planned development there.
And the traffic mitigation measure is the thing that you just said, which is the walkway and the, can you tell me what traffic mitigation measures are?
Yeah, more posting of speed limit signs, sidewalks, lighting, lit crosswalks, just the whole game. A lot of things that come from the complete street guidelines from Massachusetts. It runs the gamut for sure.
I will just add a quick note that there's a lot of grant opportunities out there for those things as well.
Good point.
Yep. So part of the discussion that I had at that last info session with some of the, because there were a lot of folks from Thomas Aquinas, was how businesses in this, you know, if that went forward, is how they could be of service to the college, right? Because they have different events and they've been growing steadily over the years. But there's, other than one place in town, there's no place for parents to stay, for example.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit more about how it would actually fit with the community there, because they were very sensitive to any intrusion into that area. But if they're already lacking in some services, that perhaps that can be taken into account in the development.
I think that's a great point. And I think we don't have the photos back up, but they're having an upper story, and those could be well suited to be inns or inns or something. You know, parents, if you're going to have those peak seasons or flexible space, that maybe that could be a place for parents to stay if they're here for a weekend.
Yeah.
But I wanted to point out the things that I've heard, the worry that I've heard has been from, you know, there are a lot of kids in the area and they ride in herds through the roads. And so in speaking of traffic and increasing traffic, those are the concerns that I've heard.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. Those came up too. Yeah.
Yep, very valid point. Looking at the other site that we focused in on, 0 Main Street. So this is, if you jump to the next slide, just a picture of the big field. But, so this is a 20-acre parcel. It is zoned residential agricultural. This is right next to Ravel and Holden. You have the Shell Bridge at the bottom of the site there, and you also have the boat launch just to the northwest. And so this is topographically, and it is quite flat. Does gently slope down to the river, but this is right along your major traffic area. It's a very attractive site. You can see just from the road that it would have a beautiful backdrop. There's so much space there that it can be flexible. We really, in our conceptual design, compacted the development near the roadway, so we would leave the entire back open for open space, including trail connections to the boat launch and Shed Bridge, potential opportunity for agricultural uses back there. And so that is and again, serviced by public water and sewer. And that next slide is just a conceptual layout of what you could envision there with the different connections to some community resources.
And the cutouts there are people's houses?
The red there?
No, the
those
angular.
Oh, sorry, those are 2 different lots. Yeah,
There are lots that currently have people's homes on them.
Correct. Yeah.
So this property has been people have been drooling over this property for years and years, and nothing's ever done on it for various reasons. Did you investigate some of the reasons why it hasn't been used?
One thing that I heard that came up was perception of potential environmental issue.
Because it's wet, wet, wet.
So
Well, not now because we're in the middle of a drought.
well, yeah, no, and even if you look at the state's GIS database, no wetlands come up. You have the riverfront area that you have to be really cognizant of and stay 200 feet from, but no significant wetlands came
It
up.
has to do with old use from NMH back in the day.
Is this
Yeah.
the laundry?
That's right.
Yeah,
And so
further
there's,
down.
I mean, for conservation, we have to be monitoring they have environmental checks that are required and soil testing that's required.
Yep.
So that exists in that area. So this
Yep.
would fall into the category of brownfield type development?
Yes, so brownfields could be real contamination or it could be the perception of contamination based on a past use. So our top recommendation for this site, but also for the Barnes property, EPA has a free targeted brownfields assessment program for municipalities and nonprofits that they will actually do a phase 1 environmental site assessment for the property, and they could go over the history of the site, but also see where there might be potential contamination, and then that would lead into a phase 2, or in the case of the Barnes, a hazardous building material survey that would actually test for contamination. So that would be the most recommended next step, is to go ahead and actually start some of that environmental assessment to see if this is a more viable site.
And these are the two that you located. They're both really close to each other.
Mhm.
Did you look at the other side of town too? Did you look at
Yeah.
other places?
Yeah, absolutely. So we looked south on Route 63. There was an old gravel site that came up a lot with the Business Park Development Committee. So that was a consideration. It really is cost prohibitive to look at that as a business park site, and Greenfield is actually going through something similar with a site there.
What?
Potentially.
Why?
Because it would take so much even just to bring the site back to level. Because it's essentially a gravel
Oh, it's been
pit.
dug out.
It's
I
been
see what
dug
you're
out,
saying.
exactly. And then also bringing new utilities to it would be incredibly expensive. We also looked at the old campground on South Mountain Road as a potential site that has a very high price tag with it. It's a beautiful site and I think has potential, but
You mean the school? The
Oh,
old
the
school?
school.
yeah, or is it the old school? Sorry.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a wonderful, like,
It's very cool.
wellness center
Yoga
or something?
retreat kind of
Yeah.
thing. Absolutely. It's a
I
really
think
beautiful
that's really
site.
cool.
But that did percolate out of our analysis for a few reasons.
So, just because we're having this discussion, the gravel pit, I mean, when we're talking about recreational stuff, it seems like there would be some creative stuff that we could do with that, right? You could, you know how ski places during the summer, they'll put inner tubes down the
Yeah.
grass and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It seems like that we might, one might be able to leverage that into some recreational. Rec was something that I think came up a lot,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
just throwing that out there, it seems like a potential.
Yes. And definitely always thinking about liability.
Because you don't have to bring it up to
No, true.
level.
You could work with the topography potentially, and there are. I know in the case of other communities, they're looking at battery storage at those types of sites,
Oh, yeah.
and some more high kind of tax yield per acre uses, but definitely some liability concerns, and it's cost prohibitive to do a lot if you're looking to bring the site to a new use outside of something that you enjoy the topography, like a mountain bike range or something. Yeah.
All the not a gravel pit, but the quarries, they'll fill them with water and have people scuba dive in them. I know we can't do that, but
No.
I was just bringing it up.
So
That would be
I
interesting.
know.
Right, wouldn't
I feel
it?
like I'm
Yeah.
taking up a lot of your guys' time, and I know
Yeah.
you guys have the draft report.
Yep.
So I'm happy just if you guys would like to have a discussion, or if there's any questions or comments, and kind of talk through things as we're putting together our final report.
Do you know on the phase 1, the EPA phase 1, if you do the phase 1, are you then obligated to move forward into phase 2 and beyond? No, it's
No,
just
not
okay.
Yep.
And then I think the other thing that I had mentioned multiple times to Leslie was the traffic counts and diving into that. Because there was, and I know you were talking about peak and giving some more context to that,
Yeah.
because it really surprised, you remember from the last info session that a lot of folks on Winchester Road were really surprised that there was quite a few. I think it was like 4,000 and something that was identified.
I don't think
Or-
on Winchester Road there is.
Okay, it kind of looked like
It
it.
forks,
Yeah, it
but
kind of
not
looked like it, and I
north
think
of Winchester.
that led to some confusion about
Yeah.
how much traffic was on Main Street versus Winchester Road.
Yes.
So
And there
be-
was a traffic study recently, since Thomas Aquinas has been here. FERCog did a traffic study, so you could go pull that.
Yes. Yeah.
On that road that says which disputes the 4,000, so you might go look at it.
Well, you used the MassDOT and the FERCog stuff, right? Did you?
It was more focused on MassDOT.
Okay.
And actually the figures, so they've since published more recent data, and the numbers are consistent, but the
Okay.
ones that we had were the 2022, and now
Okay.
they've got 23 numbers available.
So I know you like data and MassDOT. You can go and actually look at like old, I think the one I was looking at was like 2017 or so. You can and come forward.
But anything that says 4,000 cars on that road is incorrect, so maybe there was
No,
a-
it wasn't
like it's
Winchester.
incorrect by a factor of probably 100. There may be 40 to 90 cars on that road. a day.
It wasn't Winchester
Yeah.
Road. That was the confusion. It was Main Street. It was just the way the map looked.
Yeah.
And that's what screwed up part of the discussion was we were thinking it was on Winchester Road and it wasn't.
That's right.
Got
Yeah.
No, so
Yeah.
we will clarify, and we're gonna
Yeah.
get below that map out a
Good.
lot bigger.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, show that.
And I have one more question. I'm sorry, I've been full of questions. The Leslie might be able to answer this because I know that she was looking into some of these properties that were like abandoned properties that were looking to be reused. Were any of those considered for? Yeah.
They, so like, I don't want to speak to any individual property, but yes, the ones that we looked at really didn't qualify as what we would call like a business park. It'd be like a single building and potentially a mix of office space, but really didn't have the scale, I think, to what we would be terming a business park.
And
as
would
part of
those
the
still
project.
qualify for that free EPA thing?
Yeah. So it's how it works is a nonprofit or the municipality basically submits an assessment application, which is a very short application, as a sponsor. And as long as the private property owner is okay with EPA having their assessment team go out and do the testing, then it's a viable project.
Will they do it for free on municipal properties?
Mm-hmm. I think I believe so, but I can look into that for you. But.
Is there a necessary destination for it? Because we have a firehouse that has some land out back. Like, does it have to have the purpose of business for the EPA to do that?
No, not at all.
Yeah, no, that's on our radar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a great program. We've used it for our own projects. We've sponsored other projects, and I can't say enough good things about EPA Region 1. The folks in Boston are terrific to work with.
Cool. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I think that's all I
So
had.
just kind of the last step. So we're
Yep.
wrapping up our final report, but we are still welcoming feedback and comments and questions as we work on the final report.
Yep.
And then we lay out the recommendations. But if you guys have any feedback on those, I'm happy to discuss them or incorporate them into the final deliverable.
If citizens want to send feedback, how do they do that to you?
Any thoughts?
Is the
I
draft?
think my email's on the
Yeah, your
presentation.
draft was on
Here
the
it is,
con-
okay.
Yeah, so
And this is online?
that's online. Yeah.
Yeah, and the
Great.
prior one was too with his address on it.
That's
too.
right.
Where
Yeah.
is it online? Just, I'm asking for people who are listening
Yeah.
so they
I
can.
believe they're on Leslie's webpage. the grant development.
We also put it on the
Yes.
homepage when the last time you did it, so we can do that again.
So you
too.
could get his information from Leslie?
Correct.
Yeah.
Or you could just email me. I'll pass it on.
Okay,
Call or email.
And we've been doing that, for the
Yep.
whole year.
okay.
Are you going to be, just one final question for me. When was the last time you talked to the Moody Center about Revelle and Holton?
It was probably May.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious, because they've got that other, when you look at that map for the NMH property right there on Main Street, they've got that other house, I think is theirs.
Yeah.
That's kind of an old residential, not old, but more contemporary than Revelle and Holton. That I think is that, do you know if that's part of
I
their,
don't. No,
Okay.
sorry.
okay, never mind.
It's like right next to Revelle and Holton?
Yeah, it was a doctor's house, I think, at one point, yeah.
It's all,
Part of their plan there.
oh, that I don't know. I
Okay.
just know it's on,
The property.
that it's owned by them. It's-
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is owned by them, yes, I know that, yep,
The parcel.
okay.
I feel like I've taken up a lot of your time, but thank you.
No, that
guys
was
for-
good.
Thanks for being willing to answer questions.
Yeah.
That's great, Sean.
And
Yeah.
congratulations on the baby.
Thank you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Go home and immediately go to bed.
That's right. I'm on first wake up duty tonight.
Oops.
Leslie, you wanna come
I'd
up?
love to.
You had a update and something about internships.
Something about internships. I
Woo.
sure do. Yeah. So I'm Leslie. I'm the grant development director, and been in the role about 6 months now. And I keep coming across these really cool projects and ideas that I just don't have time for. Specifically, things that have been mentioned in our relevant planning documents. So the master plan, local rapid recovery plan. There's a Franklin County outdoor recreation plan that was released last year, which I just learned about, so if you didn't know. So some of the projects most of these projects are related to communications and marketing the town's recreational and agricultural assets. Like other rural towns, we don't really have the staff capacity. See you, Sean?
Thanks.
We don't really have the staff capacity. One of the recommendations, for example, was hiring a communications person, and that takes a lot of time and money and effort, and that position needs to be paid for and needs to go somewhere. I thought that we could make some progress on some of these projects by utilizing 1 to 2 student interns from the area who would be supervised by me for 1 semester to start, and we would see where that goes, provided that all goes well. So let's see, I'll just go through some of the factual information, then happy to answer questions about this. So I sent along to you all 2 kind of sample descriptions, and this is what would ideally be posted and advertised. The reason they look different is because there's different funding sources and stipulations associated with each of the positions. Regardless of what the position costs for this first round to see how this would work, the funding is going to come from my line item for personal expenses, which is, could be used for like training or replacing my office supplies. The first option and the cheapest option is having an undergraduate work study position. It's cheapest because the town is ultimately only responsible for 30% of the total fees paid for the hours worked. So we could offer an internship at minimum wage, $15 an hour. Let's say you ask the student to do 5 hours of work per week for 1 semester. That is 85 hours, and so a total fee of $1,275, but the town would then only have to pay $318 of that. Another option is that we could post this as a position for a graduate student, but graduate students, at least at UMass, aren't eligible for work study positions, so that would need to be stipended, and the town is responsible for the full cost of that, so it's a more costly option. And then, of course, if a student were interested, they could always take the internship for academic credit, which I think would pair well with a certain selection of programs at the local schools. That's free for us, but that's kind of dependent on if that's what the student wants. The reason I feel committed to offering a paid position, even if it's stipended, is both because I believe we would attract more reliable and committed candidates, and also just because I think we should strive to try and compensate people at least a little bit for their work, even if with this stipended example, if it's not necessarily a full working wage. I think that kind of covers most of it. I'll open it up for questions. I assume you folks may have some about how that would go or what that would look like.
Yeah, how are you gonna, so these are mostly remote, and on the deliverable, it says a 12 to 15 page report, but a lot of what they're doing is like online monitoring and stuff like that. How are you going to quantify their work?
Yeah, good question. Regarding the final deliverable, I mean, it'll be clear if they did it or not. And hopefully when finished, I would welcome them to kind of make a presentation about that. In terms of the ongoing tasks, so the first half of those internship responsibilities that I listed, I'm gonna know if it's getting done or not pretty quickly. I mean, one of the things that they'd be asked to hopefully take over is compiling information and constructing the town newsletter. But another requirement for the position, regardless of how it's funded or who accepts it, is that one of their weekly hours, so if they're asked to do 5 hours of work a week, one of those has to overlap with my schedule. The goal for that is both so that I can provide supervision and help them troubleshoot and work through problems, but also so that I can check in with them and know exactly what's happening and make sure that the projects are being managed effectively.
Well, because it's very easy for time to slide. And so, especially with undergraduates, with my undergraduates, you have to give them pretty specific checklist guidelines. It takes relatively significant preparation for supervision, right? You're not sitting over them, but the preparation, the ramp in, the checklist, the did you do this, the accountability will be more significant with undergraduates probably, but then graduates have so much work that they're doing so I think that not to malign someone's effort, but to understand, to recognize that especially with remote things, it's easy to slide that time. Something like this would require some relatively specific kind of checkpoints. Do you know what I'm saying? And some relatively specific instructions of expectation, or else what happens is the time slides and no work gets done, even if it's well intended, right? Not even saying that it's on purpose, but people are busy, and so so you're going to be not doing. Then you would be turning over the newsletter and using your newsletter time to supervise, kind of in theory?
I suppose I haven't really thought about it in like that plus minus sense, but yes, ideally offloading some of the tasks that I am doing regularly would allow time for supervision. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is a small risk for the town, especially with the paid one, talking $300 and some odd for a semester.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's worth taking a shot, see what happens. And if it falls flat, we didn't blow a lot of money.
And it came from my account, yeah.
Yeah, you just have to spend less money. That's all.
And that's what we discussed, is that it's if it doesn't work, there's no long-term commitment here. You're not
Right.
hiring them as a personnel and having to now lay them off or fire. It's just a semester to start with. Maybe it works great and you want to replicate it. Maybe it doesn't, and chalk it up to experience.
Yeah, I mean, if it works, what do we have to? I think what do we have to lose on that?
And then once you've done it once, you have this pattern that you could use for the.
Yeah, if you find
Because
something
there's
that's
that
successful.
rotating nature.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off of that, I don't want to get ahead of myself, which is why I'm starting with this, but I had an idea that I think if this internship position went well, would also be a huge asset for the town, which is a summer internship for 2 high school students, where they're kind of tasked with exploring the recreational assets that we have in town, and inventorying them, both in terms of what is the physical infrastructure, what's the trail status,
Hot or not?
Yeah, in a sense, both to see what we need in terms of information, kiosks, signage, accessibility, but also they would then be tasked with marketing that, whether that's through a TikTok. I know that there's, obviously reasons for social media policies, but I think what I'm trying to say is, I think if this goes well, we can leverage motivated local students to help us complete some of our objectives while also providing them with the support to kind of grow their passion for public service. That was a little rambly, but I have long-term ideas if things go well, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
When you're calendaring, you really want to be careful of you want to be cognizant of their exam periods and stuff like that. So because they can want to work and then they can't. They have to put their education first. So you might want to counterweight it right? So they would have, if they're working 5 hours a week, they're working 6 hours a week for most, and then not at all around exam time or something like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. If things are going well, I would love this position to be as flexible as possible.
I think just a couple of questions and
Sure.
a comment. Are you thinking undergrad or grad?
My initial preference was grad.
Right. Because they've got more, a lot of times they have more job experience and they've had gaps between their undergrad and their grad. And the grad is more specific about what they're trying to do, right?
But they have more significant responsibilities, is what I
Right,
think.
but
I mean, I
they're-
would lean undergrad because you can, there's a different amount of work that you can.
Right, so this is just my opinion. So my opinion is we need some experience, which I think would be more of the grad, but again, you're just putting it out there and see what you get and see how I think it's an iterative process that you're going to learn what people can actually offer. In terms of deliverables, I think we have a ton of content, both on the website, in the newsletter, and I would really like a social media presence where all of that content gets reused. And I think we would benefit, undergrad or grad, from having a fresh pair of eyes on what's going on in Northfield and how you would get it out there in front of people. Whether it's the traditional paper or the website or Facebook, for all the different social medias, media sites. I just think we would benefit from having somebody give us a fresh look, because we have a ton of content, and when I talk to people, I feel like I've got three groups. One is a group that looks and wants something different. Then there's a group that's totally on board and they're totally involved. And then there's this vast middle of people who are interested but are busy working or doing stuff with their kids or whatever and are not really always paying attention, and miss something like the placemaking workshop, right? I just think the more we can take that content, the same content, but push it out in 5 or 6 different ways, I think the better. So I would love to have somebody really focused on that. I'm not really interested in a report so much as it'll show just based on, it should show on things like engagement and other marketing measures, less so on the report. I'm interested in the report for you or for their education or whatever, but I'm more interested in what the measures are that come out of doing marketing. You have plenty of marketing measures that you could put forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're starting from basically ground zero, so any marketing, you're going to see some movement on those performance measures. Yeah, that's my take. So, yeah, I think it's a worthwhile experiment. I would just lean heavily on the marketing and the branding and pushing that out. Yep.
If we can back up for a second on your justification. You talk about your previous job, you're supervising 24 UMass college students. What was your title?
I was a graduate assistant, but a lot of people are graduate assistants, so I worked with the Center for Health Promotion.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And how long did you supervise these 24 students?
A year and a half.
And then the thing that popped out to me, you talk about onboarding, payroll, routine supervision, which is somewhat of a misnomer if it's routine, but conflict resolution. What's your philosophy on conflict resolution?
Ooh, it depends on the conflict. I mean, I guess my philosophy to distill it is I'm always looking for the solution that benefits both parties, but I think I had some specific incidents with a couple of students that were pretty tough to resolve. I suppose my purpose for listing that as a qualification for why I feel prepared to supervise was more to say that with such a high volume of students and student interaction, I feel as though hopefully my days of conflict resolution on that scale are behind me, and I don't anticipate the same kind of difficulties with 1 to 2 interns here, though I would feel prepared for it.
Okay. Have you ever had training in it?
Not formally, but I have previous experience working at a sexual health clinic and also a domestic violence agency. So I've definitely picked up a lot along the way from those roles in health and human services.
Okay. The only reason I'm asking, I just see potential conflict with grad or undergrad students. Time crunches, my schedule has fundamentally changed. You've got your rules for me, mine's going to change all of a sudden. I haven't managed grad students. I've managed a lot of people, but not grad students, and apparently their schedule can be fairly demanding. So I just wanted to flesh that out.
Yeah.
Well, that's why if you're doing online stuff, then, and you have marketing measures, it doesn't, if you end up doing it at 11 o'clock at night, for example, finishing something up so somebody can look at it the next day, then it's there. You know what I mean? Then
Yeah, it's not time sensitive. I get that.
Right.
Yep.
So to me, I think that's the ideal thing to work in and around schedules like that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the conflict that I experienced in that role was like heavy on the interpersonal. Not to say there weren't those students that were shirking work, whether it was intentional or not, but I found that a lot easier to navigate because there is kind of a clear right or wrong, especially when the students signed some kind of agreement that states their job responsibilities or volunteer, intended responsibilities. It's pretty easy to kind of identify where they're not measuring up and how that could be changed versus the interpersonal, which can just be so nuanced.
That's supervision. And weren't you your 25 students or whatever, weren't you out talking about sexual activity and prevention? Yeah. So to me, that's a little bit more of a controversial or could be controversial topic on how you supervise and what you're telling, what they're telling other people. I could see where that would be a little bit, as opposed to, hey, I don't like the way this looked on Instagram or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
So you're looking for approval from us?
Yeah, I want to know
move
if
forward.
it's okay to submit the paperwork to be an agency, certified work study agency, so that I can then advertise the position and potentially onboard someone for January.
Yeah, I see it as pretty low risk for us. I mean,
think it's worth
if it fails, we
exploring.
lose $300 some odd dollars. If it succeeds, we gain immeasurably in, what we get. So I think it's worth the risk, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's
Do you need a motion?
being marketed though as coming out of your,
Personal expense account.
thank you, I'm sorry. So it would be important that not be, that it would actually come out of your expense and not be on the next budget, we add that much to the expense. Like if that's what you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble communicating tonight.
And,
You mean keep it within the budget as is? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, when you go
Yeah.
into the new budget, don't just bump it to include this because we've.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Keep whatever this amount is going in. I mean, that would be an effective use of
well,
money.
we'll know by
Yeah.
that
I
point how
absolutely
it's going.
agree that it's
too.
an effective
Yeah.
use, that's why I'm.
Yeah, as long as it
Yeah.
doesn't get baked into it next year, the budget increases.
Yeah, that's what I
It's still
mean.
grant funded, so
She's grant funded,
it's all
it won't,
just-
none of this goes into the budget.
Right.
The only other piece
Looking
is,
further down the road, the grant's going to stop, and then we're going to have to make a decision as a town.
right, another year and a half, and then, you decide whether or not you're gonna even continue with this, let alone the expense line items and
Right.
what those would be. Also, I told her that, like, if we go with the graduate student program, I'm fine with offering up my expense line item too, because I haven't touched it, so.
So
So
I'll
there's
entertain a
room.
motion to allow Leslie to move forward on this, and
So moved.
Do we need to determine what the stipend's going to be first?
She's just progressing, she's not gonna hire anybody yet, right?
Well, so you'd have to do it
No,
soon.
Sounds like we are.
Yeah,
Up to,
the request is to post the position.
okay.
To onboard someone.
what's the
So
upper
it's-
amount that you're talking about?
I think that
1,000?
1,000 would be at
I'm
the
not at
graduate
this time
school.
planning to post the graduate internship, which would be a stipend. I am planning to post, ideally, undergrad work study, 85 hours for a semester,
Yep.
which would lead to that $300 odd amount.
yeah.
have two students concurrently working at the same time, because I think that would
So what's the total amount for the motion?
for
Up
for
to-
like maximum like $650.
So up to 650. Yeah.
I'd like to ask you to
For two.
do a weekly or bi-weekly,
Just come back and do an update.
tally of what you, with the people. I'm talking about feedback for them and also record for you of what was accomplished. Because I think that, again, time slides, and I think that that would be useful for your records and for their feedback. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Like a written paragraph.
The benefit
Yeah.
of a work study position is I have to report the hours worked weekly by the
Right,
student to
right.
UMass for them to get
Right.
paid. So it's, I would say, even more stringent than the graduate stipend adoption in terms
Yeah.
of making sure work is getting done.
But I mean, actually, independently, you did the Facebook, these are the things that you did this
Yeah.
week, and then you have a record of the things that you did this week. You know what I mean? Because going forward, if you have somebody who you're like, wow, that person was amazing. We know that students rotate relatively often, right? And their availability will.
So,
And so you want to know what it was that they were doing that made you feel like it was amazing. The level of work, the attention to which items. You see what I'm saying? And if you
Yeah.
keep, if you take a little paragraph every week or 2 weeks, then you have a record of that person, feedback for them, but also memory for you of what worked and what didn't.
would it make sense to just summarize as keeping track of tasks and output?
I think that
Accomplishments
there
are-
should be a written
That's what I'm
paragraph at
saying.
some increment.
Yeah. So a written account record of
Update.
tasks and the accomplishments against those tasks.
Yeah.
Kind of like you're doing with the Shellbridge thing with all the, you're keeping track of what we're all doing and saying and
Yeah.
what the next steps are.
You want to
Yeah.
revise the motion, V?
Yeah, if we can go further down the
Yeah.
rabbit hole, just for my clarification,
Yeah.
please, Leslie. So are these two interns going to work on your 8 bullet points? That's your thrust?
That's a starting list.
Is that an attainable goal in a semester to get work done on these 8 items with 2 people? Or is that an overreach, or is it an underreach?
I think it could be an underreach, but I'm wanting to assess as we go.
It's your first time out.
Yeah. I think it could be an underreach, but I have no shortage of things related to this that could be added, some of which were generated tonight.
Okay. So we have a motion?
Did you want to redo the motion up to 650?
I would just, yeah, I mean, you can just add, I think, whatever you said.
2
plus
people at that rate?
Up to, yeah, up
2
to,
people up to $650
Yeah.
out of your line item expenses.
Or
2 people at
or Andreas, because we
318.75.
offered it, so we want to make sure
If it
we have the
works out
flexibility if
fine.
we need it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Do I hear a second on that motion?
And with a written increment.
It's the 2 people up to
within a week.
318.75, right, for a total of 650?
Yeah.
yeah,
Little-
I'll second, just so we're clear.
yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Thanks, Leslie.
Cool. Thanks, Joel.
Thanks,
I'm
Leslie.
excited, and I look forward to keeping you updated. I'm optimistic that we'll have some good outcomes.
Well, it's almost December at this rate, so we gotta get going.
It is. Thank you.
Okay. We have town hall office availability.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this is,
Protocol and postings.
really, this is just an update to you. I don't think this is any real change in what the staff is doing, but we decided to kind of formalize it with just kind of a protocol policy. And so we decided to work on a standardized posting on everybody's door. So you could see kind of the same thing, talking about
Yep.
when office hours are, who's in that office, how do you reach them, here's their email, here's their phone number. So if someone comes in and the door is closed, it doesn't just say whatever office, and clearly we're not here. It actually gives them information on how to reach us.
Yeah.
The website has some of this information, but we don't generally put, it's bad It's bad cybersecurity to put emails on there. It's very hackable, so we have like a click here to contact someone button. But sometimes people actually want your email address as opposed to click here and send you a notice at
Yeah.
that moment.
Right.
So if I put it on the door, it's a little bit
It's
more
more secure.
It's a little bit easier for someone
Yeah,
who's
and
standing
just to
there.
mention too, I mean, almost everybody has a phone. You call.
Right, and
You really need to call, just don't show up and be like, oh, nobody was here.
well, and that's part of what we explained, that although the
Yeah.
town hall is open Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4, many of the employees are not full-time, so they're not here all those hours, and their hours vary. So we encourage people, obviously, to call or email, but if you do come, if you're just coming through town and they're not here, the other thing you can do is schedule an in-person appointment.
Yeah.
Contact and set up appointments. People do that all the time, and that way you'll be guaranteed. The staff is very flexible, even if it's outside their normal hours. If someone says, hey, I can't
Yeah.
make that, could we do this time instead? I've never really heard any of the staff say, absolutely not, no way. So, so we just wanted to sort of standardize, this is,
Yeah.
to get it out there, this is the kind of protocol, here's all the information, and everybody's put one on their door with whoever works in that office
Great.
and how to reach them.
Good.
Okay,
So that's all that is.
Okay. Great.
all right.
Sewer.
Okay, and we have a couple resignations and vacancies.
Yikes.
First one is the sewer commissioner resignation, Tom Walker. Please accept this letter of resignation from my position as sewer commissioner. My last day of my position will be 11/1/2024. It has been a pleasure to work with all of you throughout the years of my service. Sincerely, Tom Walker. So, you know, need to vote to accept the resignation.
We do?
Don't
Generally do.
Oh, okay. Even for another elected
Yeah,
board?
and for another
Okay.
official, yeah, we accept.
Because you're going to do the combined
Gotcha.
appointment.
So I'll motion that we accept the letter of his resignation.
With
Do I hear a
regret?
second?
Except with regret is often what
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
With deep regret.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And on that note, we now need a sewer commissioner to be appointed.
Ooh-yay.
We need letters of interest. And we want to fill this position very fast because right now, we only have one commissioner that shows up all the time, and we cannot sign anything, cannot approve anything. So
We voted as a town to do the 5.
Yep.
it hasn't come through yet.
I bug them every week.
Yeah.
Still haven't heard back, huh?
Well, they answer me. It's supposed to be going to the final
No, it
vote
went
and
to
the governor's office.
Yeah. It made
Was
it
in
through,
Grost in both towns.
we were talking about it, it made it through the House
Yeah.
and it is going to the Senate and
For-
then the governor's.
for
Senate.
Gross.
So we have to move very fast on this because this position needs to be filled in 2 weeks.
Right, so I think that usually you guys announce that any citizen interest form should be submitted, and if your next meeting to do this specifically is going to be the 26th, then if they could turn them in by the 25th.
Can we give some information about what the sewer commission would
I was
need
going to
do?
invite Karen up to,
I'm sorry for standing up, my back is hurting, so.
I have back pills.
Oh,
I see you up there
Okay.
suffering.
no, I asked Karen earlier and she said she'd talk real quick.
Oh, good.
that's so kind of you.
There's no problem, I've been there.
Oh, that's not a big
Hi, good evening, Karen Boudreaux, sewer commissioner, lone sewer commissioner. Our other sewer commissioner is basically inactive due to health and personal reasons. We can't move forward. We can't run. We can't call a meeting. We can't operate without a quorum. It's budget season. It's consent order season. It's this. It's that. It's everything else. Last January, we put in a request at the special town meeting for 5. Having done some research on that, it's my understanding, other than select board taking it over, it's my understanding that there is no municipality in the state of Massachusetts with 5 commissioners. The city of Lynn has 3 commissioners and 2 city council that are appointed to the board, if you will. We're running, it's not hard to be a commissioner. We're running 2 budgets, 2 projects, and so forth. The biggest thing, if you go anywhere, is on MGL, Mass General Laws, when it describes
what does it take to be a sewer commissioner? They're looking for people with payroll or finance background, Excel, Word, email, things like this. We don't go into manholes. I go to the plant just to bring Isaac a donut. But you have to understand a little bit about the business, but it's your operators, your chief operator, your operators, the DEP. They're the licenses that are saying, do this with the inflow and infiltration, do this with the upgrades. It's your engineers. We're looking at and reviewing budgets. We're helping Isaac push things through that don't go through, and we're conducting meetings about once a month. Is what we're down to now, because we've gone through the last 2 years a lot of administrative cleanup that was just sitting there collecting dust, that we've beat it to death and things are in better shape that way. So that's what we need. We need people at the table. It's not hard. It's hour and a half. We're going to one meeting a month now, and see where it goes forward. But right now, we're at a standstill.
Right.
Yeah, so we need these in by the 25th, and
Right.
on the 26th, we'll appoint somebody.
Okay.
Right, so generally, the select board has a meeting on the 26th. It would be joint with Karen, and whoever would be interested, they would come to that meeting,
Right.
and then as a group, you could
And if they
vote.
can't make it, at least their form would be here.
Correct.
Okay.
And then you would vote to appoint them as a group.
I'm just looking at the House bill on Mass Legislature, and today the House concurred with the Senate.
Which means,
So they're on to I think they just need to pass it to be engrossed on the House side.
And then
So
it
it
goes to the
literally is
governor.
like November 12th, House.
I'm so
Yeah.
hoping Governor Healy can come help
Yeah.
me out at these meetings.
Yeah.
Doesn't usually take a lot of time at the once
She
it
won't
hits the
go in
governor.
manholes.
I wouldn't put it past her if she had to.
So can
Yeah.
we put it, this one's relatively time sensitive and important, can we put it on the town webpage, like a banner announcement or a block announcement or something like that? Can we put it in the
On the homepage?
newsletter or on Nextdoor? Like, can we really publicize it? Because
Karen can you put it on next door?
Yeah.
And Andrea, can we put something on the website?
Yep, we
Because
can
we're gonna have two of them, actually, too.
We're gonna have two of them?
Two openings.
Two openings.
Oh, how are we gonna have two openings?
Two
Not
more
on-
openings.
Not sewer,
Oh,
different board.
We're gonna have a Board of Health opening,
Oh,
Yeah.
too. So,
Well, if this bill goes through, then the more
right.
Yeah,
Then we'll have, we'll
citizen
deal,
forms, the better,
we'll
right?
deal with that.
Yeah.
When it comes
Yeah.
along, if it comes along.
yeah, okay.
the overwhelming response we'll deal with.
The overwhelming, you look like you wanna be the sewer commissioner.
The line
I
out
know
the door.
Dave does, he's actually come down to the plant.
A couple times.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
We're
okay.
neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
And then on to the, so
Here's your,
get those letters of interest. And now on to the Board of Health resignation.
Yeah.
I-
Right, which you already accepted at a previous
Which
meeting.
one?
Yeah,
So that you're good
Karen
with that.
resigned from the Board of Health.
But the Board of Health just gave us formal notice just before this meeting that they've accepted it. And so we're announcing as well that, and I've sent an email to the Board of Health. I have not heard back from them. I'm hoping that they will also want to do the same timeline, but at the very least, you're still accepting citizen interest forms for the Board of Health.
Okay, citizens' interest for the Board of Health, too.
I'm sorry, Karen, would you take a moment and tell us what the Board of Health does? Because people, if you want people to come, we need to know.
They don't make dessert for people.
No, they don't. Hi, Karen Booth, a former Board of Health. We have a really good Board of Health in the town of Northfield now. We have Dr. Poti, we have Allison Wallstrom, who's a nurse, we have Kathy Bridges, who came back as an engineer and is a big help for David Bulk. I resigned because we have had some family changes at Chateau Boudreaux, and that has required me to dedicate a good amount of time to that. Add to that the lack of resources on the sewer has really eaten into my life schedule.
Yeah.
So that's why I started. And really, honestly, I was probably the weakest link sitting on that board. I mean, you've got a doctor, a nurse, and 2 engineers.
You've got the public health side and the sewer.
If somebody had a food
The septic
service
side. And
Food
the,
service,
and
right.
the,
background, I mean, what you had.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But
food
it's an
service.
excellent board. highly qualified people that work together well. So hopefully somebody can step in there and, contribute to that board as well.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm
Thank
going home.
you. Well, thanks for all you do.
So I haven't heard back
And
from the
done.
Board of
Thanks for all
Health.
you did.
Hopefully that,
Bye.
hopefully they want to do that timeline. They might push it out to a
Did you
future
get your
meeting.
medicine?
Yes.
Yes.
But I would still encourage people, if they're interested,
Yeah.
to send it in by the 25th in case that's something the Board of Health wants to move forward with at the next meeting.
Well, also we're getting into the holidays, so,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, let's move on. Vote the Swamp Road parcel surplus. I believe we have to declare that as surplus property before we can
Do anything at town meeting.
do anything at the town meeting.
Correct.
So I'd make a motion to vote the Swamp Road parcel as surplus.
Second.
There you go.
Any discussion?
Nope.
We already discussed
All
it.
those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great.
Okay. Topics not anticipated.
I wanted to ask about the website. Is that a topic not anticipated? Because you were gonna, there was some deadline or something.
Oh, we're still working on that. In fact, we've had a meeting and we're actually reviewing
Okay, that's,
reviewing
yeah,
sites.
that's not under
For-
the 48-hour
Yeah.
rule, though.
Yeah,
No, we're still working on that.
nothing
Okay.
critical then. Committee board appointments, well, we.
Nothing? Oh, that,
Yeah.
hopefully,
Announcements, I'm going to reiterate
no fires.
that, the tax classification will be the next meeting, got postponed. The decision by the Attorney General on the solar fields, what we voted on in
The
our,
articles, yeah.
the articles we voted on at the town meeting
In May.
in May, that's going to be on the website. And we will put that on at a future meeting to do a quick discussion on it if need be.
The
But
planning board will discuss it
the planning,
heartily,
that's
I'm
more the
sure.
planning board.
Yep.
Remember, there's a burning ban because of the fire danger.
Drought,
The drought, yeah. And I want to again acknowledge all the first responders and
Yeah.
everybody that helped out with that
Don't
fire
forget
up
our
there.
special town meeting tomorrow night
Yeah.
at
6:30.
6:30
that's a,
So, and there's the special town meeting tomorrow night is at 6:30
6:30.
at Pioneer.
At
At the
PVRS.
high school.
at
Yes.
Pioneer Valley Regional, yeah.
And I do have one recognition, or two, I guess, recognition for service. Received an email from a resident who wanted to recognize Sergeant Kobolinski and Officer Brown for their assistance with a medical emergency at their home, a family member that was experiencing. And they said their prompt arrival, their knowledge of procedures, the compassion and teamwork between the PD and then the EMS that showed up was noteworthy. And their family member is back home and doing well.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
got
I will
goosebumps.
mention that it seems like all our emergency services and the highway department, all the departments seem to work well in an emergency.
For sure.
They all pitch in, so just want to acknowledge them.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Did you have another one, or that was the?
No, it was both of them, so it
Yeah,
was sort of
okay.
twofer.
Yeah.
No, and the acknowledgement for the two people who just resigned. Cranberry Road, who had been on Board of Health, and
Tom
Tom
Walker.
who had been on sewer. Thank you so
For-
much for your
Yeah,
Yeah, and
many
Tom.
years of service.
Many years.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Karen. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
I beat you. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Mind
thank you.
meld.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.